get into it. We can get into it. Body fluids on the floor, get into it like a hood. We can get into it. We can get into it. Body fluids on the floor, get into it like a hood. What's the motion? Swing a right finger with a left, going straight. Take the heart out his chest. Nut buck in the club. Homegirls lose the heel saying, fuck my new curls and fuck them bum bitches. They talk like they hands on Mike Tyson. It's killed to be killed when I'm fighting. My sisters not watching, they jumping like double dutch. They like transition cause violence is given. Soft bitches is tripping.
What about DeSantis, who's going to be on the hustings, so to speak, for the next year? And he's made this a part of his campaign, attacking Disney, saying it's a woke corporation. We've put the company on a pedestal, but they've really embraced the idea of getting the sexualized content in the program line that I'm not willing to cross. I mean, that's what he said. I quoted DeSantis there.
It's not our goal to be involved in a culture war. Our goal is to continue to tell wonderful stories and have a positive impact on the world. The notion that Disney is in any way sexualizing children, quite frankly, is preposterous and inaccurate.
Welcome to the Disney Plus This Is Me Pride Celebration Spectacular.
Come on over here. Come on over here. No, you flipped me off. Come on, Howard. No. Come on. You're not an intellectual. You're a fake and a fraud.
We're getting videos from the theme parks showing men dressed up as women working at Disney.
So my name's Nick. I'm one of Fairy Godmother's apprentices. I'm here to shop you around and make all your selections for the day.
It's the Haps.
Dad, what are you doing?
Ooh, is this him?
Okay, don't we have some deliveries to make?
This is not about whether I accept lesbian couples, which, as it happens, I do. The question is, who speaks to her children about sex? The mom and dad family, the person who has given her life to raising these children, to doing the heroic work that she's doing, who is going to make this decision? Or is it going to be the people who brought you Harvey Weinstein?
These are the tampons I usually use.
Thank you.
I prefer pads. They're more comfortable for me.
Thank you.
I always get the ones with wings.
Thank you.
Get them scented and bleach-free if you can.
Thank you. Yo, my daughter loves these.
Thank you. These might be easier if it's her first period.
These are really environmentally friendly.
That's a clip from Disney's upcoming show, Baymax, and if you look closely, there is a transgender flag on what appears to be a biological female who thinks that she is a man. This show is for kids as young as 2 years old. So nobody can come to me and tell me that Disney does not have an agenda with young people when it comes to gender theory and gender ideology.
Logic is an enemy and truth is a menace. Any state, any entity, any ideology that fails to recognize the worth, the dignity, the rights of man, that state is obsolete. A case to be filed under M for mankind.
This is the dimension of imagination. It is an area which we call the Twilight Zone.
If you still have not canceled your Disney Plus subscription, now might be a good time to do so because Disney is back at it again, pushing out that gay agenda, but this time they're teaming up with this transgender influencer who likes dressing up like a little girl in order to promote their little girl's Minnie Mouse clothing. Now, it did not take me long at all going through this person's Instagram to find some serious red flags regarding specifically age play, meaning he likes dressing up like a little girl. But wait, it gets worse. Disney, is this really the look that we want to promote little girls' clothing? Like, listen, if you want to be a freak, you can be a freak, but like, I got lines, and drawing little girls in with this kind of person is definitely crossing one of those lines. So, all of that to say, maybe it's time to actually cancel that Disney Plus subscription and start speaking with your dollars.
Texted me this morning, Gen Z is 30 to 40% queerer than the other generation's moms, so Disney better get with it.
Our leadership over there has been so welcoming to my not at all secret gay agenda.
They've been really open to exploring queer stories. I'm on the production side. And so kind of the only way to have these canonical trans characters, canonical asexual characters, canonical bisexual characters is to give them stories where they can be their whole selves.
I identify as a biromantic asexual. I want to add the pockets of the LGBTQ community that you don't see. I was I want to get gay advanced.
So we no longer say ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. It's hello everyone or hello friends.
We were targeting Gen Z and millennials.
Well, how about them watching a new show about an 18-year-old impregnated by Satan? That's Disney's latest project.
They've agreed to stream the 6-part German-produced series on Disney+. The show's name is Pauline. It's produced by the same people who created the Netflix show How to Sell Drugs Online Fast.
Targeting a younger...
all this content's going to kids who don't know any of this, and even if they're in a household like Keith that have supportive parents, they're still getting all of this information from media of what is normal.
I mean, you know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
Oh,
so we didn't
God.
do that this time.
So no prince or a different kind of prince?
We have a different approach to what I'm sure a lot of people will assume is a love story just because, like, we cast a guy in the movie.
What shirt
Andrew
is she
Burnap,
wearing?
Great dude. It's one of those things that I think everyone's going to have their assumptions about what it's actually going to be, but it's really not about the love story at all, which is really, really wonderful. And whether or not she finds love along the way is anybody's guess until 2024. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby.
Well, who the hell are you to say all of Andrew's scenes could get cut? Like, who are you?
Oh, my God.
Are you Disney? Are you running? Can you go back to the tweet on what I told Bob Iger? Can you go back to that? Here's what I told Bob. I said, I'm curious, Bob. Don't you think messages like this is why Disney keeps having box office flops? I've read your book, and I have. It's a phenomenal book. It's Ride of a Lifetime, I think it's called.
Great book.
I had our entire company read the book. You're a smart CEO. I'm not sure I'm convinced you're okay with this. What is this girl's name? Rachel Ziegler, whatever her name is. Yes, this is exactly the backlash you're going to get from parents who have kids who are your customers. You're supposed to win parents over. You're talking to kids. The parents pay for the tickets. You have to be a dummy as a marketer to be saying, if I'm Bob Iger, you know what we're doing? Emergency meeting. We're putting Snow White on hold for 2 years, and guess what?
Smart.
Pay her a couple $1 million, go away. We're going to bring another person to play this role because you just screwed this thing up.
So, a while back, Disney executive mentioned on video, she said, well, I have 2 children, 5 and 7. One is trans and the other is pansexual. And I just thought mathematically right away, it's like the chance you have a trans kid is 1 in 3,000. That's not a very high chance. And let's say the chance that you have a pansexual kid is the same. Whatever that is rarer than trans because no one ever even heard about it until 5 years ago. So the joint probability that you have a trans kid and a pansexual kid is 1 in 9 million. The odds that you're a pathological narcissist sacrificing your own children to the glorification of your compassion is 8,999,999 to 1.
Bring in the boys to Pleasure Island, and then he starts whispering what happens to the boys. Watch it. Ooh.
Now, Coachman, what's your proposition? How would you blokes like to make some real money? Well, and who do we have to, No, nothing like that. I'm collecting stupid little boys. Stupid little boys? You know, the disobedient ones what play from school. And I takes them to Pleasure Island. Ah, Pleasure Island. Pleasure Island? But the law, suppose they... No, there's no risk. They never come back as boys.
Ever seen that video of Mickey Mouse making Swiss cheese with his dick?
No.
There's an old Mickey
That
Mouse
Walt Disney
cartoon.
himself made.
Someone from the Walt Disney organization.
Will I
I don't
get
want
to
to pin
see
it
that?
on Walt.
Will I get to see it now?
Yeah, watch. So he's fucking. He's got his
with his bone.
dick.
Okay, but he's wearing
got
pants.
He's got a boner, and he's putting holes in his Swiss cheese with his boner.
I always knew that's how
Look
they
at
did
that. Mickey has a boner, and he's making Swiss cheese with his dick.
My God, look at him.
I mean, it's in the middle of his fucking pants. It's not in any other place other than where your dick's supposed to be. What are we supposed to think there?
I don't know.
That's 100% Mickey's dick.
I feel.
beloved.
Leave me alone.
Down, Kitty. So how's our little beau doing? Come on, good, Kitty. Just take off. Down, Kitty. Come on, good, Kitty. Just take off. Come on, good, Kitty. Just take off.
After years of working with them round the clock, Walt Disney was losing his patience with children.
Welcome to Disneyland, the place. So the place where children are. Oh my God! Please. Anywho, the place where children are given a voice. Will you shut up?
He developed a hatred for kids and was deliberately cruel to them.
You don't fancy looking at me while I'm talking to you, huh? Oh, that's fucking rude. What are you looking at? The castle? That castle was made by Mexicans who I didn't have to pay anything. It's probably gonna fall down on your ass while you're inside it and kill you. No, I'm just kidding. They were Puerto Rican.
Parents also claimed that he was deliberately scaring children, but he argued that his new characters came with important moral messages.
And here we are with a new character, Skinless Jim. Skinless Jim, I ain't got no skin. Oh no, what are you gonna do about that? Jim said children's skin. Well, that's good of you that you want to share.
Disney was eventually punished for his actions.
So the judges said you can't make any films involving kids for a while.
You're kidding. We just finished animating loads of films. Some of them are full of kids.
Well,
I mean, what the hell are we gonna do about Snow White and the 7 weird-looking toddlers?
People don't really know or talk about this, but Disneyland in Florida has a complete underground facility. The compound is larger than the whole theme park itself. The structure goes down 20 stories in the ground, and it has interconnected tunnels that links to every attractions in the park. Now, I don't know everything that goes down there, but I know for a fact that there's some twisted shit that goes down. I know because in my early 30s, I went to an exclusive party over there, and it was fucking wild. I can't name them all, but there was a lot of really famous celebrities doing some really bad things. For instance, Tom Hanks was there with R. Kelly at a table with a couple of dudes, and they were just fucking this nugget and passing it to each other. It was fucking disgusting. I saw a lot of things there that I can't mention on the podcast, but my excuse of being there was just the free drugs. But now that I think about it, that shit was fucked up.
Do you know Disney has a club, Club 33, where you have to pay 6 figures just to join? You pretty much have to be invited. It's a very exclusive club. The only real benefits of this club are like these secret restaurants in Disney. You don't want to know what's on that menu. Apparently, there's a club within that club where they throw private parties to the elite, the ultra wealthy. People have like snuck in and taken pictures inside these places, and they have like artwork and statues of Baphomet. And they say that Walt Disney, in his parks, created a bunch of secret passageways, and there can be access through the Club 33 rooms. Why would they even need secret passageways in these kingdoms?
Do you know why Disney characters wear gloves?
Why do they wear gloves? They're all murderers.
Check this shit out.
They're mass murderers.
Boom. Okay. So you're familiar with those gloves, right?
Yeah.
Mickey's wearing those gloves. It has like the 3 lines on it.
The infamous.
Yeah, the infamous gloves. Interesting. Why those gloves and why those 3 lines?
Okay.
Check this out. These gloves are the same gloves of the Freemasons. No! Of the Freemasons, bro. No. Crazy. No. Crazy. Where have we ever seen gloves with those 3 lines?
No.
Ever. It's not even like a regular thing. They're literally Freemason gloves.
That's fucked.
Crazy.
Level esoteric, right.
Right. Were you surprised when you found that there were more than 33 degrees?
No, not really. See, here's how this works. When I went through the Masonic rituals, I had the spirit guides in my ear whispering things, telling me to do things, telling me to answer certain things in certain ways. Because I did that, I was identified by the leadership of the Grand Lodge of the state of Wisconsin that I was someone a little bit extraordinary. And see, that's one of the ways in which I ultimately got contacted by the Illuminati, is because the spirit guides had given me certain key things to say, key things to do, even gestures to make, stuff like that, that would identify me as being someone who is worthy of more light. You see, that's what they promise in all the Masonic degrees. They say, you know, you get light, you get further light, you get more light. And of course, where does this light come from? Well, if you read the writings of the Masonic leaders, that comes from Lucifer.
And how many Masons know that?
Maybe 1 in 1,000, but most of them don't have a clue unless they bother to toddle upstairs and read the books that are in their own Masonic libraries, like I did.
How many Master Masons know that there are Satanists among them?
I'd say the same figure I quoted earlier, 1 in 1,000.
Right. Since Catholics are strictly forbidden to be Masons, why were you being asked to do two opposite things?
What people don't realize is that the Catholic Church helped start the Masons. And that, for example, the Scottish Rite, most of the degrees in the Scottish Rite were written by Jesuits. So even though there is this apparent antipathy between the Masons and the Catholics, to the point that up until John Paul II's reign, if you became a Mason and you were Roman Catholic, you were de facto excommunicated, just like that. But actually it's all a sham, because most of the high level of people in the Vatican are all Freemasons, and many of the people that are Freemasons are Catholics.
Sexual no es un delito. No es un delito. Sí, pero es pecado. Bueno, primero, distingamos pecado por delito. Pero también es pecado la falta de caridad con el prójimo. ¿Y vos cómo andás?
Haram.
Okay.
Welcome to Dudes Brewing.
It's your boy Bender and your boy Kels.
Super duper Kels.
What's up? What's up? What's up?
We in the place to be, guys. Welcome back to a new episode. We got some things. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, we're here to cover. So there's been a lot of things going on in the news with like Dylan Mulvaney and with Target and different brands all throughout, I guess, this past Pride Month. And it was just interesting. It felt like sort of almost like a chaotic month to a certain degree, like with all the corporations getting like so much backlash for.
Well, people coming, I feel like corporations dipping their toes in it and then dipping out. And obviously,
it's crazy. They like so they went all in on like, okay, everything we're gonna rainbow everything and we're gonna do our ESG thing, and it's like so we can get some points. You know, it was like their big month to up their corporate social credit score.
Okay, everybody, that's a wrap. Wrap? I forgot to wrap my presents.
And I forgot to buy a present for transgender Barbie.
What?
No.
Don't worry, guys. Hey, Siri. Does Target stock a swimsuit where I can tuck my Johnson in so everyone thinks I'm a girl?
Bullseye. Yeah, radical. Let's go.
Here at Target, we love to target your kids.
and it's just one month, and I always tell people to maybe think about the fact that it's 1 month and they just go back to doing what they're doing. Do they really care? Does Activision really care?
Yeah.
Does Bud Light truly care?
Oh yeah, the Call of Duty thing, Activision, yeah.
I knew I saw something. Bro, what's she looking at? Oh.
I am a clone of a man named Francois Sanon, one-time fleet admiral of the UC during the...
Sorry, did you want to get immersed in our world? Yeah, well, guess what? Pronouns! Gender ambiguity! Current day Californian, because that's all we know, because we're boring! We're so boring!
You know, they had their rainbow picture up or whatever they did for the month.
Yeah, and they had a fallout with that player.
A big fallout with one of their biggest players on it, due to the fact that he just said something about protecting children. He just said, don't bring children into this. And they essentially, long story short, they took his skins off their marketplace and a lot of his other things. And there's been a couple players that stood by him and they did the same thing.
Yeah, for sure. So
to them.
Yeah. So it's just been an interesting month for all these brands, and then some of them, like Starbucks, started off with a rollout of like, just everything Pride, and then they backed out of it sometimes during the backlash. Some of them backed out, like Budweiser, and then they found out Budweiser was sponsoring certain events, and it was just more to it. So they were still kind of like subvertedly or like covertly still being involved in certain things that was upsetting their fan base, because their fan base is like, it's American. It's real like beers and hot dogs and barbecue. It's man's man like thing.
And like it's man's man, frat boys as well.
Frat
like
boys,
you know what I mean. These are just very
that's your target audience.
Dudes.
Yeah, it's your target audience.
So it's I was very shocked. I don't drink Bud Light because I'm from Australia.
Yeah.
But seeing it, I was like, why would you match that brand up? How was that such an odd brand?
Yeah, everything was disingenuous. It was really disingenuous, and it's something that I really want to. I feel bad for a lot of people that are involved in or their lifestyle happens to be around LGBTQ, or they live an LGBTQ lifestyle, or someone that may be trans, because they've sort of tokenized the community and exploited them in multiple ways, just for profit.
Yeah.
And it's down to the same thing with film and television.
Yeah.
So right now there's a running joke that like, okay, how do you get the opportunity to become a director now in Hollywood? They're like, okay, find an old TV show, make all the old leads in the TV show for the reboot, make them all gay, and get $100 million from Netflix. And it's just like, it's this weird ploy that they're doing, like making the world all falsely homogenous. And even they're tokenizing Africans, they're tokenizing Asians, and they say it's inclusion, but it
really doesn't. It doesn't feel like
it's exploiting people that haven't felt like naturally included by doing disingenuous things, disingenuous efforts.
For me, like it feels like I explained to someone, when you used to go to school and you see that kid, the special kid in the class, and you get the special kid to come into things. And you're all sitting there knowing he's getting into these things because he's special. and there's nothing wrong with that. Of course, he needs the extra help. And of course, give him the extra scores. In fact, give him the basketball to shoot a shot over you. And that's cool.
Yeah, if he's got some kind of disability.
Like a mental disability. I'm fine with that. And that's fine. But we all know in the classroom, he's not actually dunking on anyone. So for me, I was like, that's the same as being African, or... I make up for gay people as well, and you're like, yeah, we've given you these characters. How do you feel? And I'm like, well, I'm not an idiot. I don't need you to literally hand it on a silver platter for me.
No, I'm not retarded. I'm special.
Take out every white character and be like, how great is this? It just makes me feel like I'm the special kid in the class, and everyone's like, how do you feel? Do you feel good?
We got rid of all the gingers.
We got everyone in this is not straight. None of them are straight, and they're all gay, and we got some colored people in here just for you, buddy.
Two dads.
Yeah, two dads, and I'm just like,
did we ask for this?
Don't touch those! Don't you ever touch my balls without asking.
But yeah, that's the other. I didn't even ask for it, so I'm just like, oh, this is weird. Okay.
Yeah.
So it feels weird watching it, and then I feel embarrassed being like, wow, so you think of me like that? Like I need handouts? I can't do it myself? So, and a lot of people go, no, it's being inclusive. No, being inclusive means giving everyone the same opportunity.
Yeah.
I think that's the key word people are missing. Yeah. I want the same opportunity. Yeah. I do not want to be better. I don't need an extra hands to get me to the same due point. And I think that's what segregates a lot of people, is when you start plucking people out and being like, well, because you're fat, gay, lesbian, and black, you're going to do this, and everyone else, you don't.
Yeah. And it's weird. I feel like they've sort of merged all these social issues.
Yeah, it's like a transformer.
Into one ball, yeah.
It's like an ultimate transformer.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like,
gentlemen, I've been doing a great deal of research, and I've decided the Decepticons need to become more politically correct. I'm a woman now. Mega trans.
My pronouns are they, them.
I know I'm safe when I'm with my friends or other non-binary people.
Non-binary?
People who aren't female or male.
So apparently this is a kids show, Transformers. I don't know if that is part of the joke here. This actually is a form of grooming. It's grooming children into a kind of confusion about their bodies, a confusion about identity. And it is extremely intentional. And it is evil at its core.
You're gay and colored and
Decepticon all together. It's like you put all these pieces together as one, and now it's like they're trying to make everyone that is a minority queer, and not only just a minority. Now you're in the oppression Olympics, so you're a minority who's also gay, who's also handicapped.
Oh man,
and it's just like you're
non-bodied abled.
Yeah, paraplegic. You're all into one, and it's like you guys are doing too much. This is extreme exploitation. You're exploiting people, you know,
under the guise of inclusion,
inclusion or whatnot. But a lot of times too, these finances from these projects, they're not going to any of these like communities. It's not going to certain organizations, and maybe might go to an LGBTQ community. Maybe if there's someone already involved as LGBTQ and it's sponsorship or whatever. But like 9 times out of 10, an African American or African being involved is not going to go to their community. An Asian, it's not going to go to a special Asian organization. None of this money goes back into anyone's community. It goes back to Disney. It goes back to Universal or whatever company it may be financed by. So it's unfortunate they're playing a lot of us to our oppression. There's some people, like you were talking about in general when you were just saying like it's sad that they want to like almost treat us like we are the like handicapped,
the handicapped special kid.
class,
yeah.
And that's how some people also feel, is that there's vested interest in keeping certain groups in a constant state of outrage, whether that's feminism, whether that's LGBTQ, whether that's like BLM or African Americans in general, or what they deem black people.
And those words are the and juice. If they're black, then it's a gang. If they're Italian, it's a mob. But if they're Jewish, it's a coincidence, and you should never speak about it.
Oh, well, we know which side you're on, don't we? A dual citizen. Ergo, dual Canadian-Israeli citizen. Therefore, she can't be trusted, can she?
I get this.
Who wrote those messages? Any of the people who wrote those messages have the integrity to speak up now and tell me?
Well, Vivian, I have a question. If we're talking about conflict of interest, is it true you worked for an Israeli intelligence firm called Black Cube?
No, who are you? No.
Keith Woods. Nice to meet you.
I get accused of being Mossad every time I pop into a space.
I think we're going back to the moving away.
No, it's on our wiki.
Now Elon Musk is being forced to sue them as he admits that Twitter revenue has absolutely plummeted and points the finger at the ADL working behind the scenes to bully advertisers from backing the platform. Here you see again, ADL led a campaign in 2020 that squeezed $60 billion in market cap from Mark Zuckerberg in just 2 days.
This is a company most people have never heard of, and this company quite literally owns the world. Most US banks are controlled by Blackrock. Blackrock owns all the major pharmaceutical companies. Blackrock owns most of the mainstream media, and Blackrock oversees roughly 10% of all stocks traded worldwide. And this company is now taking over governments. All of this has allowed Blackrock to amass $10 trillion in assets. Yes, trillion. Blackrock is worth half of America's total GDP. It's so crazy that the US and Chinese government now rely on Blackrock to escape recessions, with BlackRock's founder and CEO now sitting on the boards of the influential Council on Foreign Relations and the World Economic Forum. In the words of Henry Kissinger, whoever controls the money controls the world, and no other company in history has had this much global influence.
You now make a point of that's an investment criteria for you.
Well, behaviors are going to have to change, and this is one thing we're asking companies. You have to force behaviors, and at BlackRock we are forcing behaviors. 54% of the incoming class are women. We added 4 more points in terms of diverse employment this year. And what we're doing internally is if you don't achieve these levels of impact, your compensation could be impacted, okay?
We're doing this.
Let's talk about what progress we've been making. Folks, one thing I want you to be thinking about, why I'm convinced the future looks bright. Let me tell you why I'm convinced the future looks bright. So I'm on, Joe and I are talking about ESG, okay? Out of the podcast that we do, they choose to put the clip of ESG on their JRE short clips. Okay, and boom. Next thing you know, that's posted all over the place. Yesterday, a clip went viral on like 500 Instagram accounts. Hey, Larry Fink is the president, not Joe Biden. I don't know if you saw that. It's everywhere. It's going clipped up and it's being taken off. Okay. Then, hey, this other clip on Twitter, then on Facebook, all these stories about, well, I didn't know about the fact that all this institutional money with 88%. And then people started texting me. Yeah. And they're like, well, you know, the story you're saying, there's no way that's true. And then I posted, if you go on Instagram real quick, Rob, I posted. The truth. And I gave people the link on Instagram to go verify everything I said. I said, I want you to go verify me. Why are they doing this? Why are they doing that? Within 2 weeks, what happens? McDonald's removes all ESG words out of their website.
Weird.
Immediately, they remove all ESG words off their website. And then outside of McDonald's, other companies start doing it one by one. They drop the acronym. So phase number one is what? The acronym is now a curse word. So first, they're just removing references of ESG. And you can read this article on vitamin.com, written by Connor Walcott. You can go find this article, Rob. So they first remove the ESG names, but not the principles. So the principles are still there, right? The principles are still there. Then S&P drops ESG scale from its debt ratings, a sigh of relief for capitalism. This is when it becomes big, when S&P is now reacting to it. So let's read this article together. S&P drops ESG from its debt ratings, a sigh of relief for capitalism. S&P and Global Major Corporate Debt Rater eliminated corporate environmental, social, and governance scores from its debt ratings, responding to criticism and concerns over political bias linked to ESG practices. That means, guys, folks, we're making progress. The people are being heard. You matter. When people say my vote doesn't matter, this is validating that your voice matters. The great equalizer today is called social media. They should have never invented this. Because yesterday I'm telling Russell Brand, I said, Russell, you know why I believe the future looks bright? He says, why? I said, let me get this straight. I said, you know who you are on my eyes? He says, who? Oh, not the shirt, you know, or hey, inside of you, inside. Right, I'm saying, he starts cracking up. I said, you were an A-lister. You were an A-lister actor, dating some of the hottest girls in Hollywood. With your accent, you entertain the world, forgetting Sarah Marshall. What the hell are you doing talking about? You don't even like capitalists. We were not on the same page with capitalism. Why are you talking? You've ruined your Hollywood career as an A-lister to be picked up. And you think Russell Brand's ever going to be in Snow White?
Never.
You think he's going to be in these movies that's coming out? I said, so let me get this straight. You're a Hollywood guy, an A-lister. I'm an insurance financial guy. What the hell are we doing starting media companies and podcasts? That's a sign that future looks bright.
In general, when there's a shooting, they want us to be a yearly outrage. Wait for a new shooting, and then the media goes and markets that one shooting all over all these networks to get us in a roar and get us in a rage. So, you know,
and it works. Though.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's worked, and I think it's hard to see when you are because we're all introduced into pop culture. And in the light of just entertainment, it's hard to see outside of that to go, wait, are they doing this because this is going to make them money? You know, it's hard for people to critically think because also they see whoever's the new top celebs and, you know, whoever, if it's a Zendaya or if it's just, you know, or The Weeknd and, you know, whoever, their favorite like musician. It's hard to see past that general basic of like, it's my favorite celebrity. To step back and go, wait, what is their intentions? And like, who's the people they're working for? Where's the money going?
Yeah.
Follow the money. And the money kind of reveals all of that. There's
what's truly happening.
Yeah. There's more at play than what it initially appears to be. So yeah, there's vested interests that just want to keep us in a state of oppression. There's philanthropists. There's all kinds of people that are involved in these things. So yeah, so we wanted to touch on, these things with like, what's happening with Target and Budweiser. Pride Month in itself is a whole month of celebrating sexual lifestyle. And I would get a holiday. I could understand.
I could say that.
I can understand a day.
A day. 100%.
I can understand a day, but a whole month.
Because most people get a day.
That?
Like Mother's Day and Father's Day, and there's obviously I correct me if I'm wrong here.
You got you got Veterans Day. You got Anzac Day if you're in Australia and New Zealand. For
what is it called? So it's not obviously African American Day.
Martin Luther King.
Is that a day?
Martin Luther King Day.
Oh, it's a day. Yeah. Oh, is that for African Americans?
Yeah, we'll celebrate Martin Luther King. They need Malcolm X Day. Malcolm was awesome.
Wait, so there's no day for African Americans?
No, there's a Black History Month.
That's the one I remember.
That makes sense because African Americans, a lot of their contributions to what they brought to America hasn't been taught about historically. Even I think in Europe, they tend to not talk about Nigerian Moors and their contribution to Europe, where they settled Spain. They also settled in Italy, and they built universities. They built the first universities in Europe. A lot of European family crest, like the Scottish arm crest, like family crest in Scotland, different crest in Ireland. Some of these countries have Nigerian Moors heads, and they have the fez cap that they wear because of the amount of time that Moors were in Europe, and they helped civilize Europe in different ways. They brought over saffron, apricot. Apricot wasn't in Europe at that time, but they also brought in Islamic algebra into Europe. So they contributed a lot to what Europe ended up becoming, and that's like around the Crusades. Deep history. I won't go into that, but I'm just saying there was African contributions to Europe that also aren't necessarily highlighted. Some parts of Europe do talk about it. So some Africans that are in Europe, whether they're Caribbean Africans, from Jamaica, via Jamaica, or if they're just from like Nigeria or Belgium, through colonization, they do have an understanding of that history. But African Americans have no understanding of African histories and African contributions as a whole. So we only know what we've done in America, and we want to take time to celebrate that contribution in America. So long ramble short.
Yeah. But definitely look it up, I'd say, for people, just to obviously just do your own homework of what he just said. Just
look up Nigerian Moors and see the history of Islamic sciences being brought into Spain. And Spain used to have the biggest mosque in Europe until it got turned into a Catholic temple, or not temple, church or whatever. Once the Catholic Church expelled Nigerian Moors back into Africa, which later they turned Africans into perpetual servants of servant.
2 hours later,
and then after they expelled the Nigerian Moors out of Europe, they put them in a granted them a perpetual state of servitude, where they decided to enslave former Nigerian Moors, or Sacrians and Barbers, into the slave trade. And that was in 1455. And that was because the Roman Catholic Church had ran out of their sugar refineries. And we touched on that in the episode of You Are Not Black for Dudes Brewing. So that kind of covers the history of how, Moors were tied to Europe in different ways, and unfortunately became enslaved as a result of old inks from the Roman Catholic Church during the Crusades. Anyhow, back to our topic. So we wanted to touch on these subjects of Pride Month, and it's just a whole month of celebrating LGBTQ. And unfortunately, I feel bad because now the topic has been focused on the education system and pushing the teaching of a sexual lifestyle onto kids. And not only that, it's now being enforced globally and different education systems. This happened in New Zealand as well, Australia, that some of the schools have been instructed to say that, you know, if a kid is going through some type of social struggle and in the classroom, a social worker can approach them, which is a counselor, and can say to them, hey, do you feel like you're in the wrong body? And it's exploiting kids at a time where, you know, they're trying to feel included into society. So that's from a teenage perspective. And then exploiting kids who are even younger than that, if they're age 7, age 5. These, vulnerable. Yeah, they're vulnerable. These kids are trying to just actually learn how to do math. They're trying to learn basics, math and directions and sciences. They're still, if they're 5 years old, they're playing in sandboxes and trying to still understand textures and, you know, routines and how to go to sleep, you know, so they're not able to critically think for themselves. So it's exploiting them from a very young age to a teenage age. And the teenage one is also super dangerous because these kids, I feel like, you know, when you're 15, 16, 17, you can feel like an outcast.
Yeah.
You can feel like you're not a part of the group. And because you don't feel like you're a part
of
the
not me, but
yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it depends on what environment.
It depends on the kid, you know.
Yeah, especially if you're in a public school. And you could really feel like, or if you're in a private school too as well, but you can feel like an outcast at that age group.
I think everyone you would see the kid or kids who were like that. Yeah. They were awkward. And school's not an easy place. Like, gosh, it's a hard place for growing teens. And I can say that hand on heart, it's rough. So of course, if you can find a place
where you belong,
where you belong. I can see why someone would latch onto that so fast,
and that's why they're saying a lot of kids right now are identifying as like LGBTQ or trans because it's become trendy
and it's
and it's a group. It's somewhere, it's somewhere to belong.
And the stats don't lie. 2004, there was like they showed no random kids just becoming trans, and then suddenly you get a surge from 2011,
I think onward maybe.
It was like 2011, 2012, but it peaked around 2020. Like it was peaking quite a lot from 2020 around there, and then obviously just grew exponentially. And you got to ask yourself, how do you start doubling and tripling and then quadrupling even in like one whole year in numbers of kids suddenly being trans? But then you're telling me for like 50 years, kids just what? Yeah. But then suddenly within the 3-year period, they suddenly were like, oh yeah.
So that's proof social engineering works.
Let's go to Elon Musk blames elite schools for brainwashing communist trans daughter into hating him for being rich. By the way, these types of stories, you have no idea what this does to me when I read these types of stories.
It works, unfortunately. You can influence people. And so some of these outside philanthropists understand that. They know that they can finance and push the world into a certain direction. But so there's been kids just being exploited at a very vulnerable time in their life where when you used to be like a teenage girls, you know, sometimes some of them would go through a tomboy phase or a gothic phase. And, you know, now if you go through a gothic phase, they'll dye their hair blue and then they'll go, are you sure you're a girl? So it's even more things. And then you're kind of perpetuating this idea that sex is interchangeable like Legos. And it's not. That's a life-changing transformation if you decide to tell a kid, hey, maybe you should just become a girl. Let's get you in some hormone programs and some things. And, you know, there's been multiple kids that had identified as like trans, like from just being asked about it or because their mom wanted them to push this idea on them. Because there's parents right now. That was the whole thing with the Megan Fox, where there was that drama around Megan Fox dressing her kids as like in girls' clothing. And so celebrities or entertainment parents will sacrifice their kids publicly and make them activists when these kids have no idea what they're protesting or being a part of because it's an adult exploiting a kid. And so same as Michael Jackson as a young performer being exploited to go out and perform, whether he wanted to do it or not. You're exploiting them and pushing them to do something in the entertainment industry.
Because you're gaining and because they're gaining something from it. People always have to remember they're not doing it out of nothing. It's
Will Smith kissing this boy on camera.
Megan gets to get back in limelight. And then obviously with Michael Jackson, a lot of people were obviously financially gaining lots of money from that one kid.
Yeah.
Whether, like he said, whether he wanted to do it or not, whether he was exhausted, whether he was, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You're making someone millions of dollars. They couldn't give a flying fuck what you have to go through, what you have to do.
Yeah.
A lot of people sacrifice their own morals to gain capital, which is the saddest, the saddest part. And I think that's what people have to look at with certain parents and these stories we hear or read about where kids, which is really sad, they kill themselves and no one wants to take the blame. They're like, he was upset that he was a girl, he killed himself. Oh, well, it's like, well, whose fault was that?
You raised him.
You were telling him that he was a girl the whole time, and he kept telling you that he wasn't a girl, but you kept pushing it, and then eventually he takes his life, and you're perplexed that happened.
Yeah, you gave him all these identity issues. You're trying to say, you can be whatever gender you want. You have 52 or 100 plus different identities you can identify as, but you can only have surgery for 2 genders.
Yeah.
Who are you fooling? You're not fooling anybody. There's only 2 genders. So right now they're socializing and social engineering the world in a dangerous way. And it's affecting kids, it's pissing parents off. And that's the red line really for society is once you reach kids, it's like, okay, we're going to tell you we didn't want this war, but you brought this war to our doorstep. And unfortunately, the people are thinking this war is against LGBTQ and it's against trans per se, but a lot of LGBTQ and trans people, they don't have anything to do with the way this is being marketed and financed and paid for.
Yeah, they're not pushing it themselves.
These are corporate interests that are trying to exploit the situation. It's also philanthropists that are doing things under the guise of like contributing to society. They say they're here to help the planet, but really what they are, they're narcissists because they want to reshape the planet according to their own vision. They're financing this, the same as BLM was being financed through George Soros. There's certain financial interests that are involved in the LGBTQ moving into the education system in a way where it's making kids more susceptible to things that don't have anything to fully do with their learning. If they're not able to drive, smoke, drink at a certain age, pushing the idea that they can change their gender at age 7 is asinine.
I was having a wonderful, peaceful conversation with this guy named Anthony Weiner. I don't know if you're familiar with the guy or not.
Yeah.
He's a very, interesting
I saw
guy.
that podcast.
Yeah. So, and I asked him a question where I say, so let me ask you, how good are you at giving blowjobs? And he looks at me like, kind of a freaking question is that? He says, I'm sorry? And I said, yeah, how good are you at giving it? He says, no. I said, when you were 11 years old, did anybody teach you how to give one? No. Why would they teach me that? That's what they're teaching in schools right now in many different places. Oh, they're not doing that. There's no way they're doing that.
There
right?
are books that do show that. Yeah.
There are books, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So if a person wants to sell that book at Barnes & Noble, go for it. If a person wants to sell that book on Amazon, go for it. But what do you think about parents that are protesting all over the place where in some districts, these guys are saying, no, this is recommended reading by the teacher and it's normal, it's okay, you should learn about this at an early age. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think it's very clear that there are certain teachers that have an agenda and that their agenda is to indoctrinate children into this LBGT mindset and that this is not just cherished but celebrated. And, if you're talking to someone who is a gay kid, great. That's great. If you want to tell them that it's okay to be gay and, you should be your true self, great. That's terrific. What my concern with is that a lot of what we're seeing with like New Jersey had an uptick in kids identifying as non-binary by 4,000%. Like it's not natural. These are not normal numbers. And I think children are very malleable. They're very impressionable. And if you reward them for certain kinds of behavior, if they are praised and cherished for certain types of behavior, I think they'll be encouraged to do that. And I think you're seeing with a lot of these detransitioners that a lot of these kids got encouraged early and got put on hormone blockers and hormones and got mastectomies and got castrated, and now they have deep regret. And
people don't want to acknowledge that, and they attack those people. They attack those detransitioners. We have always thought that young children are not capable of making life-changing decisions at an early age. That's why we don't allow 7-year-olds to get tattooed. Right. And now all of a sudden you're allowing 7-year-olds to say that I'm a girl or I'm a boy, cut off my breasts and put me on testosterone.
Yeah.
That's craziness.
My name is Chloe Cole, and I am a detransitioner. Another way to put that would be, I used to believe that I was born in the wrong body, and the adults in my life whom I trusted affirmed my belief, and this caused me lifelong, irreversible harm. I speak to you today as a victim of one of the biggest medical scandals in the history of the United States of America. I speak to you in the hope that you will have the courage to bring the scandal to an end and ensure that other vulnerable teenagers, children, and young adults don't go through what I went through. At the age of 12, I began to experience what my medical team would later diagnose as gender dysphoria. I was well into an early puberty, and I was very uncomfortable with the changes that were happening to my body. I was intimidated by male attention, and when I told my parents that I felt like a boy, in retrospect, all I meant was that I hated puberty, that I wanted this newfound sexual attention to go away, that I looked up to my brothers a little bit more than I did to my sisters. I came out as transgender in a letter I sent on the dining room table. My parents were immediately concerned. They felt like they needed to get outside help from medical professionals, but this proved to be a mistake. It immediately set our entire family down a path of ideologically motivated deceit and coercion. The gender specialist I was taken to see told my parents that I needed to be put on puberty-blocking drugs right away. They asked my parents a simple question: would you rather have a dead daughter or a living transgender son? The choice was enough for my parents to let their guard down, and in retrospect, I can't blame them. This was the moment that we all became victims of so-called gender-affirming care. I was fast-tracked onto puberty blockers and then testosterone. The resulting menopausal-like hot flashes made focusing on school impossible. I still get joint pains and weird pops in my back, but they were far worse when I was on the blockers. A month later, when I was 13, I had my first testosterone injection. It's caused permanent changes to my body. My voice will forever be deeper, my jawline sharper, my nose longer, my bone structure permanently masculinized, my Adam's apple more prominent, my fertility unknown. I look in the mirror sometimes and I feel like a monster. I had a double mastectomy at 15. They tested my amputated breast for cancer. And I was cancer-free, of course. I was perfectly healthy. There was nothing wrong with my still developing body or my breasts, other than that, as an insecure teenage girl, I felt awkward about it. After my breasts were taken away from me, the tissue was incinerated. Before I was able to legally drive, I had a huge part of my future womanhood taken from me. I will never be able to breastfeed. I struggle to look at myself in the mirror at times. I still struggle to this day with sexual dysfunction. And I have massive scars across my chest. And the skin grafts that they took of my nipples are weeping fluid today. And they were grafted into a more masculine positioning, they said. After surgery, my grades in school plummeted. Everything that I went through did nothing to address my underlying mental health issues that I had. And my doctors, with their theories on gender, thought that all my problems would go away as soon as I was surgically transformed into something that vaguely resembled a boy. Their theories were wrong. The drugs and surgeries changed my body, but they did not and could not change the basic reality that I am and forever will be a female. When my specialist first told my parents that they could have a dead daughter or a live transgender son, I wasn't suicidal. I was a happy child who struggled because she was different. However, at 16, after my surgery, I did become suicidal. I'm doing better now, but my parents almost got the dead daughter promised to them by my doctors. My doctors had almost created the very nightmare they said they were trying to avoid. So what message do I want to bring to American teenagers and their families? I didn't need to be lied to. I needed compassion. I needed to be loved. I needed to be given therapy to help me work through my issues, not affirm to my delusion that by transforming into a boy, it would solve all my problems. We need to stop telling 12-year-olds that they were born wrong, that they are right to reject their own bodies and feel uncomfortable with their own skin. We need to stop telling children that puberty is an option, that they can choose what kind of puberty they will go through, just so they can choose what clothes to wear or what music to listen to. Puberty is a rite of passage to adulthood, not a disease to be mitigated. Today, I should be at home with my family celebrating my 19th birthday, and instead I'm making a desperate plea to my elected representatives. Learn the lessons from other medical scandals like the opioid crisis, to recognize that doctors are human too, and sometimes they are wrong. My childhood was ruined along with thousands of detransitioners that I know through our networks. This needs to stop. You alone can stop it. Enough children have already been victimized by this barbaric pseudoscience. Please let me be your final warning. Thank you.
You know, so we're not going to make our kids into Spider-Man because he feels like Spider-Man. You're supposed to guide your child in the correct direction. Right now, there's some parents that are telling people to parent and like, just let your kid express himself and let him figure out things on his own. I was like, okay, just let him stick his finger in an electric socket because he just wants to explore. And it's like, no, you're as a parent, you're there to nurture and guide them in a healthy direction. Ideally, both parents, you know, being there if possible, because it took both parents to have this kid. So therefore, they need that yin and yang in order to be able to have a balanced life. Otherwise, they'll feel like something's missing. But anyhow, 100%. So that's the beginning of our topic. So Cuties, the way they marketed and covered that film is extremely strange in comparison to how they covered the new film about child trafficking called Sound of Freedom.
Yes.
Go see it. But did you notice anything? Did you see any?
I just felt like when Cuties, I saw it because I was just on Netflix and I was just, you know, and they do like a small trailer, you know, when you're hovering.
Yeah.
And I was just watching it for a little bit, and
yeah, because you see a bunch of little girls like this,
and I was like,
whoa, and those poses like, what is? Yeah, because you're just like, what is this?
I was like,
about?
what is this? And then it started, and I was like. And halfway through the trailer, the little girl does something, and I'm just like,
the splits.
What?
Does like the splits or something?
Nah, it's something even weirder. She's dressing herself in very, how do I say this?
Provocative,
sexually, provocative and clothing. And I was watching it, and I was like, she looks like she's like 11 or 10. I was like, what?
Yeah.
And then I was like, all right, let me just watch the full trailer because maybe there's a reason. And I watch it, and by the end of it, I was like, this doesn't make any sense. I was like, why would anyone want to watch this?
This age group,
it's
of
like
young
it's a
girls.
bunch of 11-year-olds.
Yeah.
And it's not like they didn't get like actors who are 30-year-olds to play. They got some actual like 11-year-old girls doing this stuff. And I was like, that's weird. Yeah, that is very weird.
And the lead girl was like a little African girl. And I was like, this is odd or whatever. And I found the director was like a French African lady. And she tried to say it was like, you know, this is a social messaging movie about the struggles of being a young girl at age 7. I was like, what? I'm like, what kind of world did you grow up in?
Yeah, it rubbed me the wrong way. I didn't watch it, to be honest. But
yeah, I only saw the trailer and I refused to watch it.
I just thought that they'd take it off Netflix.
It didn't feel right looking at it.
Yeah, to watch it.
Just something felt off.
That's why I thought, I was like, oh, I'm going to watch this.
Who's into this?
But I was like, oh, Netflix will take it off. But it didn't get taken off. There was no bad articles about it. Yeah. Not one bad thing.
Yeah, so Rolling Stone covered it. It was just like, oh, this is like a coming-of-age story. You know, it's misunderstood through the extremities of today and differences, social differences of today. It's misunderstood.
And this is what Calvin says. Language is so important. And he said this in a prior video. What he just said, it's only a small amount, but it makes the general public think, well, if you say it like that, I guess, you know, you can structure anything you truly want with language.
Language abuse.
Yeah, to make anything or anything sound
acceptable, you know, in a certain way. So the coverage of Cuties was very much that. It was a misunderstood piece in art.
Oh yeah, misunderstood piece.
And of a coming of age story of a young girl trying to express herself, and critics are caught up in today's social politics of freedom.
Of course.
Then the coverage of Sound of Freedom, which is about child trafficking, they regulated it down to, oh, this is a right-winger wet dream for conspiracy theories of QAnon and the child trafficking hysteria.
Which is weird because I'm like, what, you trying to say it doesn't exist?
You're trying to say it doesn't exist, right?
That's like
right.
that's literally like saying criminals don't exist.
Yeah.
These conspiracy rights.
Kids getting snatched in cars is a theory.
It's a theory. Like I'm guessing that these 8 million kids that went missing for the stats for I think it was like last year. They're probably just playing in a playground somewhere.
Yeah, they just disappeared somewhere.
They just disappeared.
In America, it was 85,000 kids or something that went missing.
But obviously, it's not because of kidnapping.
Yeah.
It'd be
no.
They just get lost.
They just get lost. Yeah,
and we'll find them at one point.
Yeah. There's not any weirdos in America that can go and find them.
No one will do that. No one will kidnap a kid.
Yeah, they didn't have an entire show called "To Catch a Predator,"
where they were actually catching predators.
Exactly.
That must have been a conspiracy.
That was all that show didn't exist.
Did that exist?
Chris Hansen, the guy who hosted it, doesn't exist.
Talk about you and I. Why don't you just have a seat right there, please? Okay. No, I need you. No, seriously. You're going to want to talk to me. I'm sorry. Trust me on this. Now, you work at Nickelodeon, huh? No. You don't. What's your name?
I think Kels is just making up things that don't exist.
Off the top of the dome.
This made up dude named Chris, and obviously you can Google him, but he maybe made the page.
Yeah.
And obviously the Facebook and his he went to great depth.
Exactly. And Chris Hansen also covered. We're joking, guys.
Yeah.
Chris Hansen. Chris Hansen covered another documentary called The Unseemly about Peter Nygaard, which we covered Peter Nygaard in our Balenciaga episode. A fashion designer who was into young Caribbean girls, young Caribbean African girls, who was interested in getting their DNA or whatever. But anyhow, it's really creepy. Check out the Balenciaga episode. It will crack your brain open.
This was not one photo shoot or one advertising campaign that happened to have one thing in it which could be misconstrued. This is every single different advertising campaign across different film shoots by different companies, all having multiple references to pedophilia.
So it wasn't a mistake?
No. So how could it be a mistake? What's the statistical odds of that being a mistake? It is obviously on purpose. Are they trying to tell you they're pedophilic? Yes or no?
I mean, pedophilic.
Just say yes. This is the exact problem with the world. The exact problem with the world is that people who are sitting here with influence are afraid to have a firm opinion on anything because they're scared of being canceled. Balenciaga just got canceled. They can't come for you. Balenciaga police ain't gonna bust in here. Don't worry, I'm here. Yeah. If they come in, I'll deal with them. It's fine. I'll take them out.
But anyhow, it will wake you up. But yeah, so the coverage between Sound of Freedom versus Cuties is totally different, bizarre. And we want to point out that hypocrisy so you guys can look it up yourselves and do your own investigations of why would the media on major media networks, BBC, Rolling Stone, why do they have a vested interest in trying to cover up the potential that there is child trafficking that has happened and that is happening?
I was not emotionally prepared for the new film, Sound of Freedom. You've heard it referred to as a right-wing film, as a Christian film, as a conspiracy movie, as a QAnon film. You know, they use all the buzzwords to make this film as radioactive as possible.
Sound of Freedom, it specifically is looking at QAnon concepts of these child trafficking rings that are run by the high-level elites. Now, it's not true.
The movie highlights the very real, not conspiracy theory of human trafficking. Need I remind you of another thing that was considered a conspiracy theory up until 5 seconds ago, which was the fact that a little guy named Jeffrey Epstein had a little island where the most powerful people, the tippity top of government officials, celebrity, Hollywood, would go.
Around the world where kids go missing. It's very strange to call that a conspiracy theory. It's disrespectful to anyone that has lost a kid from child trafficking, lost a kid in general from being snatched up off the street. I was almost snatched up as a kid where I was playing out at a park. A guy tried to pull me into a car, and only for the fact that I screamed, all my other church members from my family's church came and got me away from the guy, you know, and he sped off. So that I was, how old was I? I think it was like 11 or something.
Damn.
Or whatever. He just kept saying, come to the car. I've got some candy. I've got some candy. Damn. So like I've been sexually abused as a kid. And I've also almost been snatched in a car as a kid. So there's a few reasons why people cover topics that they do, and it's very important for them, and this is why I'm a big proponent of nuclear families. Keep mom and dad together if as much as possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, so check that out. And then there's some interesting coverage around BBC presenters that they're trying to keep quiet with
that's weird, man.
Yeah, there's some BBC presenters that have lately been getting caught up in child grooming.
I'm just like, what is happening at BBC? I'm like, how's your hiring process? You just get guys in. You're like, kids, cool, come through, man.
Yeah, it's like, okay, how endemic is the situation with people in media or people in politics targeting kids? Like in the UK, this has been going on since the 80s.
Yeah,
there's so many articles. You guys can do your Googles of presenters, of politicians being caught with underage boys, underage girls, some sort of weird sort of thing of just attracting minors. The fact that they have a word for that, it's called MAPS. The fact that they have a word for it called minor attracted persons is disgusting in itself. That's a way of them trying to normalize,
like we said about language
abuse once again. So another way for them to try to normalize the fact that they're exploiting children. And I won't
call anyone a map. I'm sorry.
No.
At the end of you just a pedophile.
Yeah.
You out here trying to get on 12-year-olds and you're not a map or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
You're a grown ass man that's trying to fuck
You're
kids.
a pedophile. We don't call thieves. We don't call thieves. What's the term for it? We don't call a thief a consumer gift grabber. A non-consumer gift grabber. We don't call a thief a non-consumer gift grabber. He's just trying to, do a Robin Hood. Like, no, he's a thief.
Well, because people would go nuts. They'd be like, no, he's just stealing. The same way that you should go nuts that, no, you're not a minor attractive person. What the hell?
Yeah, you're trying to moralize something immoral and try to make something that is bad a good. And that, yeah.
Oh, no, yeah. Well, what he said was true. And what Kels was saying about these presenters is the irony of how they can speak and hate on people. They can speak down on people, and it's weird that you're sitting in these positions going, well, this person's doing this person's doing that.
Yeah.
You're presenting to the world, but you know what you've done, like what you are doing.
Yeah, what you're doing in private.
Yeah.
But they don't have any shame about it, because a lot of them are in levels of society where you reach success. You do get offered to join certain groups that, in almost every company, they've got, the best pals in the company, or, in the team, certain team members have like a certain clique that they hang out with. So it's the same thing on a corporate level, and the same thing in levels of entertainment, politics, and society. You can get invited into certain fraternal groups, and then it becomes normal, because now you're like, I'm with my people, and it's like I can be open and free. And so you kind of normalize your corruption, because they're just like, oh, you're just as like abusive as me. It's like old Hollywood. Hollywood had a level of abuse that they were able to get away with. And so it's almost like it was a normalized thing for some of these people to not even understand that what they're doing is like, it's taking advantage of people. It's not cool.
No, yeah.
But yeah, so BBC had these coverage with the two presenters, and then there's Philip Schofield. They just came out with one of the names of one of the presenters. And that presenter had the audacity to be doing coverage on Andrew Tate and calling Andrew Tate a sex trafficker and a human trafficker and a pimp and all these things. So a little strange. Yeah. And then CNN in America, some of these CNN executives have been arrested and caught with child pornography.
Damn.
And there was another sporting coach who recently got caught up in child pornography under the same thing that, so, and where are these kids? Who are these kids? How are they getting this child pornography?
Yeah, I was just about to say, I wouldn't even know where to start.
The child pornography is not coming out of anywhere. So these must be kids that have been either abducted and forced into stuff in a private location. And that also reminds me of the house recently. There was a house that got stumbled upon in some state in the States.
Okay.
Where they had found a dead, like, trans woman, trans African
woman.
And the house was
filled with kids.
Yeah, it was kids that were being kept in the back room of the house. And it was this big trans LGBTQ house, but they were hiding kids, and there was a dead body there of a dead African trans person.
First responders were called here to these apartments on Saturday for an apparent cardiac arrest. When they got here, they discovered someone had died and also found that several people were hiding children in a back room. Tonight, 4 children less than 10 years old are in DCF custody after authorities and public officials say they were found in an apartment with 6 cross-dressing men, sex toys, drugs, and alcohol. Firefighters discovered them after one of those adults died at the apartment.
It was obviously sickening, to hear from those that were there at the scene.
So these type of things are strange, and it seems like a joke. But this is actually what's going on.
I thought it was like a safe house that were using kids to come live with trans people. And, that's how they sold it. Some kind of safe house for kids to come live with trans people. And then they were like, why is there a dead body? What the hell are you doing with these kids?
Yeah, I actually don't know the story of
I remember reading about it because it was supposed to be one a safe house for kids and I don't even know why you'd be letting kids live with a bunch of grown ass adults in the first place, but sure. Yeah. And then they're shocked that these kids were found with sexual things around them and a dead body, and I'm just like, you're shocked.
Well, it's also, they've kind of normalized the idea of like, okay, adoption for someone that is like queer or trans or something of that sort. But, this is also another story that happened recently in Atlanta where there was 2 men that had adopted kids. And they found out after they adopted these kids that I don't know what age group that they discovered it at, but they had been forcing the 2 kids to perform sexual acts. And this had been going on for like a number of years.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight. Developing now, a couple is behind bars accused of producing child porn. Authorities say with their adopted kids.
Yes, Savannah, good evening, and very disturbing details indeed. The Walton County Sheriff's Office says that it was an investigation by the GBI that led them to the couple. According to authorities, the couple was making in their home. Zachary Zulock and his husband William Zulock are being charged for child sex crimes. The Walton County Sheriff's Office raided their home on St. Regis Way in Oxford and found that both men were engaging in sexually abusive acts and videotaping it with their adopted sibling children.
These 2 adopted kids were living with these 2 men who were gay, and this is why people have different feelings about LGBTQ adopting children. Because they feel like, obviously if a child comes from a mom and dad, we all come from a mom and dad, no matter what your identity is, we all come from a mom or dad, but, they don't feel like it's necessarily a healthy environment to have a child in because it can vary. And I had this conversation with somebody ages ago on Facebook and it turned into like, they were deeply offended. And I was just explaining to them like my only issue with children being around somebody who may be queer is depending on that person's level of like testosterone and sexual interest, because men, we have a sword, so we have an incentive to poke stuff, we don't get offered a lot of intimate access even from ladies all the time. This is why you have a lot of men right now that are going trans, but they're still keeping their penis and they're still going into ladies' locker rooms. And there was this one jail in Brazil where they put a trans man inside a woman's prison. He got somewhere between 6 to 9 ladies pregnant, like back to back while he was in the woman's prison. But there's some things men will go to such extremes to get actual, access to feeling wanted, so men will change their gender to be included into something or even win a sports competition. But this is why people sort of have weird feelings. So I had this conversation with someone on Facebook that I was working with a producer and a guy who ran a children's casting company in LA. I will not say their name. HiPop, just said their name. That the head of the company, he had a propensity to touch kids inappropriately while I was working with them as an acting coach. The company's from LA, but they came to New Zealand and they hired me as an acting coach. And I was extremely disturbed by the way he was touching some of these kids, and I approached other people about it, and they said, "Oh no, that's just how he is." Then he tried to kiss me at one point, and I might have explained the story before on our podcast, but then I had to push this guy off of me because, and they were just like, oh no, this is just how he is. He doesn't really have a limit. And so the thing is, when you live for sexual conquest, if you have some sort of mental thing going on with you, and that's like the only thing that makes you feel special, you kind of can go past that limit. You don't have a threshold of something to stop you. You do need a code. You do need a boundary of going, you can't be tolerant towards everything. You have to have some sort of like, well, you know what, that's a bit too much. Sorry, that crossed the red line. Yeah. So BBC, CNN, child trafficking, things and those topics, they like to call it a theory, but then some of their executives and some of these media people are now getting caught up in it. And that's, like I said, with politicians as well. It's been going on since the 80s. There was a whole thing with George Bush Sr. being caught in the White House with a bunch of boys. So you might want to look that up on Google.
And if Washington doesn't have enough to talk about these days, the Washington Times reported today that unidentified White House aides in the Carter, Reagan, and Bush administrations now are being investigated for using the services of a call boy ring. The paper reports that 2 of the male prostitutes were given a late-night tour of the White House last year. The White House press secretary, Marlin Fitzwater, said he knew nothing of this investigation. NBC's Lisa Myers reports her sources in the U.S. Attorney's Office say the investigation is not focusing on prostitution, but on fraud involving the use of credit cards to pay for the call boy services.
Practices. Sources confirmed a Washington Times report today that D.C. police and the Internal Revenue Service are investigating a male prostitution ring whose clients may have included people connected to the Bush and Reagan administrations. But the sources told CBS News there is no indication at present that the investigation involves any high government or military officials.
For me, it was just kind of weird being in the White House at that time of the night and getting to go into places that the guy was telling us that nobody gets to go to. And I seen rooms in there that I'd never even heard about. When Craig Spence and Larry King had a couple of groups. One was called Bodies by God, and they had the Cowboys, and there was another group that was started by Larry King, which was called the Golden Boys, which was kids that were usually under the age of approximately 10.
We had uncovered a series of allegations from some minors, and it led me to a call boy operation.
Well, it sure fits with, this boy Paul Bonasti, and he tells a tale of being brought to the White House on occasion, kind of as a reward for the kid.
Craig Spence is dead. He committed suicide. He had advanced stages of AIDS. He was an AIDS carrier, and he killed himself. This was the thing that always bothered me. They claimed it was the largest male prostitution ring in the city that they've ever had uncovered. It was $1 million a year minimum.
Yeah.
And yet they only prosecuted the operator, Henry Vinson, and 3 of his lieutenants, as it were. Mm-hmm. They never went after any of the Johns or the clients. This operation claimed to have clients that ran from the White House to the Capitol Hill to the State House to the churches within the media.
Exactly what Paul describes as the people he was with.
And a lot of the stuff led there, but we couldn't quite nail it at all cases because, again, to accuse someone of high stature, you've got to be very careful.
I understand.
We were able to do it through the mother lode was provided us credit card receipts and canceled checks, and then lists of the clients. The prosecutors knew all this stuff. There was approximately 20,000 documents they had. They sealed the entire record by court order. And we've attempted on several occasions to unseal that, and we've been told it'll be a cold day in hell before those records ever get unsealed. And it makes me wonder what's in those records.
Yeah.
Frank, one of 2 openly homosexual members of Congress, acknowledged having used a male prostitute, whom he then hired as a personal employee. The man had keys to Frank's basement apartment on Capitol Hill. Frank paid him approximately $20,000 out of his own pocket to be his housekeeper and driver. But as first reported in today's Washington Times, the man was on probation for sex crimes and a drug conviction. And he ran a prostitution business out of Frank's home.
Massachusetts Democrat Barney Frank, a homosexual, threatened to expose fellow congressmen he knew to be gay unless they stopped spreading rumors.
Yeah, so who started pushing the idea of transgenderism? There was a guy named Magnus Hirschfeld, if I'm not mistaken, and he was from Germany. he made a whole bunch of books about the idea of sexology and transgenderism. And during the 1930s, which was the time period that he was around, when the Nazi Party came into power, they burned a lot of his books, and not saying the Nazi Party was great people, but they were trying to make pure humans, and they didn't like the idea of this whole idea of sexual perversion being mixed in with their idea of the perfect human or a good human in general. So they burned a lot of his books, and he belonged to a certain community. I'm not sure if that's relevant or not, but that's just a part of something that is the history of World War II. Then you have another guy named Alfred Kinsey. Alfred Kinsey had the Kinsey scale, which I mentioned Alfred Kinsey 3 times on our podcast. So I'm pretty sure you guys can probably find some coverage around there, or one of our shorts that does cover Alfred Kinsey. So he was very instrumental in pushing the idea of a gay meter on how gay you are, how straight you are. But also all of his research came from a corrupt Nazi officer as well, who was doing sexual experiments on little children. And so he was getting all his information from these from this Nazi officer and collecting it. And he was also the first person to start documenting some of his sexual experiments with some of his clients, Alfred Kinsey, which essentially was porn. And who the Alfred Kinsey mentor? Hugh Hefner. So between these two people, they had sexualized society as a whole. And then there's another man who also pushed the idea of transgenderism out of New Zealand by the name of John Money.
Matt Walsh talks about where these ideas come from, and so he digs into 2 guys, Alfred Kinsey and John Money. And I'll show you a little clip right now of that kind of discussion.
Kinsey would be very happy with our culture today. His idea was that children are sexual from birth, that we're all inherently sexual creatures from cradle to grave. He believed that true happiness is found in a life of perverse sexual experimentation. John Money was a psychologist and professor at Johns Hopkins University. Gender ideology was his brainchild. In fact, he coined the terms gender identity and gender roles. And according to Money, babies are gender neutral at birth. And ultimately, environment determines whether a person is a man or a woman.
All right, so I want to take some time right now to kind of discuss this stuff with you guys of who these gentlemen are, because I think it's very helpful. So John Money and Alfred Kinsey are central figures in our modern conversation on the supposed malleability of biology. Kinsey is a well-known sexual deviant, so I don't want to focus on him. In fact, I want to do the more fair thing. I want to focus on the guy who is more well-reputed of the two. So I want to focus on John William Money. So John Money was born in 1921. He died in 2006, and he was a New Zealand psychologist. He was a sexologist and an author known for his research into sexual identity and the biology of gender.
It's always as easy as that on the balloon?
It should be, shouldn't it? But it isn't always.
Because?
Well, we always take for granted from the haircut, the blue color for boys, the pink color for girls, the clothing, and when you get grown up, the body shape. But sometimes it doesn't always agree. We just hope it does most of the time.
What can go?
So Money found his magnum opus when he ran into the Reimer twins, two boys that were brought to him. So Bruce Reimer was a young boy who recently went through a freak accident during his circumcision, and his penis was almost entirely burnt off. When the Reimers experienced this, they were frantic and desperate for somebody to help. They heard about Money's research, so they took their child to him. Upon inspection, he encouraged that the baby be castrated and raised as a girl, and then gave the parents instructions, if they go through with this, never to tell this child that he was a boy. So the parents did this. They changed Bruce's name to Brenda, and then they followed his instructions. But here's the problem. They found that Brenda was not adapting very well to being raised as a girl. The parents continued to bring both of their boys to Money, where he then exposed them to sexually explicit conversations at a very young age, and exposed them to constant pressure, specifically on Brenda, to have surgical procedures done to him to do a vaginoplasty. When that didn't work, he resorted to forcing them both to take off their clothes. The brother and then the other brother that was raised as a girl taking off their clothes and filming both of these boys in sexually explicit positions with each other. This is all part of his experiment. Finally, as a last-ditch effort to try to push Brenda into a vaginoplasty, the boy at the time was forced to sit down with money and a transsexual person who had just undergone gender reassignment surgery so that these two people could discuss this with a child. I'll show you a reenactment in a documentary the BBC did that kind of shows this scene.
She was almost 13. Dr. Money made one last attempt to persuade Brenda to have a vagina constructed. The psychologist enlisted the help of a transsexual.
Is there anything you'd like to ask me or anything you'd like to say?
He thought that when Brenda saw someone who had voluntarily submitted to a genital operation, she would be willing to have surgery too. Some experts think that this was a reasonable course of action.
So after this encounter and others, Brenda finally refused all of Money's attempts to turn this child into a girl through vaginoplasty and other medical procedures. And when she finally just broke down and refused to go anymore, the parents finally broke the news to Brenda that his name was actually Bruce and that he was born as a boy. Upon this new information, he immediately requested to convert back to becoming a boy and then was raised as a boy the rest of his life and even had a phalloplasty to repair what had happened to him with that circumcision. But unfortunately, the damage had been done, and both boys would later on in life commit suicide. Now, here's why I share that story with you. Not because of John Money, and to show you how really frightfully evil this guy was, because he was an abysmal failure, and people know it now. He went on to report that his findings were totally successful, and of course they weren't. And Bruce, who later became known as David, by the way, he changed his name to David, Reimer, when he found out that Money was still purporting his experiment with these two boys to be a success, he became vocal about it and did the documentary that I just showed you. So I don't want to show you this just simply to undermine Money. That's already been done. He's a quack. But rather to show you the idea that kind of undergirds the transgender movement. And it's the idea that we can refute our nature with just the right kind of diabolical nurture. That you can touch a hot stove, as it were, and expect not to be burned. Which in my mind is really just an indication of secularism, or godless thinking, if you will. Now follow me on this, even if you don't believe in God. But if God does not exist, then there is no such thing really as nature, right? Or it's just random, and science can run roughshod over it. But Jurassic Park, long ago, tried to tell us you screw with nature, and it has a bad way of coming back to bite you in the butt.
Dr. John Money was a monster. He had David and his twin brother Brian assume sex positions with one another. He would take pictures, he would take videos. He was openly pro-pedophilia. He admitted that he never reported pedophiles to police, even those who were actively abusing children, owing to his belief that adult-child sex was normal and, in his words, quote, often beneficial. Both of the Reimer twins committed suicide as a result of Dr. Money's experiments on them. He never issued any sort of apology or any true contrition or remorse. Truly, Money is a murderer. Dr. Money is still hailed as a pioneer in gender research and a champion, essentially, of radical gender ideology that we see today. The man was a monster.
If you guys have time, go look that up. I actually just saw a clip. I didn't even know that the son and the mother were on Oprah years ago.
This case was called a medical triumph, but in truth, the case was a failure. This is David, and this is Janet Reimer, David's mother.
So if those who don't know the story, there was two twins. One of them had a botched circumcision. The mom heard about John Money through some advertisement on TV, contacted him, and he saw this as the perfect opportunity for him to prove his theory about gender being a social construct. You got two twin babies, both boys, but one can be raised as a girl. So we can prove this thing.
After David died, there was an outcry. Dr. Money did not cause David's death, but his family felt that he was partly responsible. Because Dr. Money had pursued his theory in the face of convincing evidence that the gender assignment had not worked, they felt that he had traumatized their son in childhood to the extent that he became suicidal as an adult.
I would like to say to Dr. Money, I would like to ask him if he could be man enough to admit to the public and to even to himself that he made a mistake. He was trying to make history and it wasn't working.
As it became clear that it wasn't working, he could not let go of the case. It was too beautiful for him to let go of it, and I think that that was unethical behavior on his part.
Horizon asked Dr. Money to participate in this documentary, but he declined. What we do know is that Dr. Money's theory that it is possible to raise a boy as a girl does not seem to hold true for most children. Nature, as far as gender identity is concerned, cannot be overridden by nurture. Above all, this is a cautionary tale. This is what can happen when science pursues a beautiful theory with scant regard for the human cost.
You're always going to see people that are going to say, well, the Dave Reimer case could have been successful. I'm living proof. And if you're not going to take my word as gospel, because I have lived through it, who else are you going to listen to? Who else is there? I've lived through it. Is it going to take somebody to wind up killing themselves, shooting themselves in the head for people to listen?
That's another guy for you guys to go look up in Google. And so between these three figures, they were the people that sort of institutionalized the idea of sexual liberation, transgenderism, transhumanism. You can be whatever you want. And it's weird that it was three dudes who were extremely sexually perverse, and they had a propensity to be somewhat attracted to kids and, you know, got their research from experimenting with children and kids and circumcision and strange things. And
yeah.
So also, is Gen Z really the most bravest, like, of all generations, and versus an older generation? Because Gen Z purports themselves to be the most brave around multiple topics, but this is a generation that's also afraid to talk about a lot of subjects and what they deem these new words that they institutionalize from a psychology point of view, triggered, or these sorts of like terminologies that keeps people in anxiety, you know, on edge to not want to hear something like, oh, you might be triggered, and go, oh my God, I can't talk about this because
it's going to trigger my anxiety.
It's going to trigger my anxiety, and I'm going to have to take my pills that were prescribed to me. And
I think quickly on that before I forget.
Go for it.
It's a Gen Z. I find they are good at pointing out things that they believe are wrong. Mm-hmm. But my question for a lot of them, I've asked much younger people, mm-hmm. and I've said this before, you really aren't. What's happened is you're being born in a situation that's perfect. In a time that's so great. Yeah. That's why it's so easy for a lot of you to go, well, we're the bravest. Well, I'm sure that if me and some Gen Z kid, Blake or Jake or whatever, we were in Mississippi 1945 and I was getting beat on the street, I'm sure he's not going to tell the police how triggered he is that I'm getting beat. I'm sure he's going to remember how white he is and think, I'm probably going to walk that way. Yeah. Because now you actually have to deal with an action. Something's actually happened. Nothing's actually happened. No one's beating me or hanging me on the street. So of course you can go, I stand with African Americans and black people. Oh, I love them. Yeah, of course you love them because nothing's happening. Because you're safe. You're safe. I want to put you in an unsafe situation, and that to me is where you see true humans. My mum used to say to me, it's when humans are at their lowest or worst situations when you see their true self,
The true nature.
You
Yeah.
don't see people's true nature when everything is happy-go-lucky.
Perfect. Yeah.
When everything's perfect, you don't know the true person
Yeah.
because it doesn't bring out their true nature. The whole point of when you push an animal into a corner, you find their true nature. They're either going to cower away and you know, take the beating or the bite or whatever it is, or they lash out and attack.
Yeah.
The same with Gen Z. There's nothing on this planet that can prove to me that you really do stand by the words you say. To me, they're all just words. Yeah, I stand with the gays and blacks and this and that and climate change. And I'm just like...
And don't talk about anything against it. Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing can be critiqued.
Yeah, and what I find weird is if you give them facts and you hit back at what they say, then I can't take it. I'm like, well, if you can't take that, hell no, are you gonna have my back if the world just flipped one day and said we need to kill all Africans? You would not have my back because you can't even take verbal criticism. Yeah. So what are you gonna do for me?
Yeah.
So I think
you're gonna opt out of the whole situation and conversation. So I can't even rely on you to have my back.
So for me, it looks good. To me, I will have the older generations back. At least they'll stand there, and at least they will say to me, "I don't like you because you're black."
Yeah, they'll
just tell you.
Tell me the truth and have like no filter.
About it, and I'm like, oh, I know where you stand.
Yeah,
I know not to come for your help.
I can deal with that. I can deal with that a lot more than someone smiling at me
and telling me how much they stand for this.
They
and stand
for all
that.
these things, but it's like, really, do you
like you're getting social ticks, and that's all I see from younger generation. It's the same reason why they put the flag of a country that's at war at one point.
And
their DP,
on Facebook or something,
Instagram for that moment of time, because again, it's. I believe this generation is more about looking like a good Samaritan than actually doing.
They're actually doing, and it's easy to get a participation award on social media because most people, especially if they're on social media, they get involved because of the idea of getting a like. And they were saying since 2009, once Facebook and YouTube came out with the like button, people are more incentivized to just try to win a argument rather than actually care for knowledge and context.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a challenging thing about doing these topics that me and Benda do, is that people can get, you know, what they deem the new term triggered, which I don't subscribe to. I don't care about that word. I think you should be able to talk about any subject because no one is above critique. But even me as an African, if you feel like there's something that my community can like improve on, feel free to contribute from that because we're all learning from each other. Every community has a struggle of similarity that we can maybe draw a parallel from. You might teach me something about the Vietnamese community and the way they went through something that might parallel to my community, the impoverished like areas of certain, you know, peoples and towns. So you're not above, you know, like letting us know how we can, you know, what we can think about, maybe discuss. But yeah, with Gen Z has a lot of courage, but they lack historical context.
This generation is all about diversity, except diversity of thought, right? We want diversity of cultures, economic, social standing. We want the skin color. We want skin colors. But if someone has a different thought as you do, all of a sudden, oh, we don't want that diversity.
I was just getting a drink at the bar, and they called both Azul and I ladies. After they were done making the drink, I went up and I was like, some people don't refer to themselves as ladies, but it's okay that you didn't know. And they kicked us out. I didn't think that was gonna happen. Like, how am I supposed to feel? This was the first time that I've like told somebody I felt brave enough to tell somebody my identity.
If your mental state is so fragile that you get sent into orbit the second that somebody refers to you as your actual biological sex, I imagine there is an issue with you internally and not the person who made the reference.
Statistics, ma'am. I'm saying statistics. You're so loving and tolerant. I can feel the tolerance.
This rush to that. Like, how did this happen, and how did this happen so quickly?
Well, this is partly tied up with this issue of the college. So here's one way into it. So now professionals are bound by law to offer gender-affirming advice. They're bound by law. Okay, so this is what this means. If you bring your 13-year-old in to be evaluated by a physician or a psychologist, and maybe she has high levels of neuroticism, tilting towards depression and anxiety, and then that's making itself manifest in bodily discomfort. Now that's being shaped by this cultural fad that insists that if you feel uncomfortable in your body, it's because you're of the opposite gender. That's the psychological epidemic part of it. And we can talk about that in a little bit more detail. But now you're duty bound by law, if you're a professional, to say, oh, you think you're a boy? Yeah, absolutely. You absolutely, 100%, you are. What can we do to facilitate that move forward? Now, the problem with that is, you see, if you're a therapist or a physician, you don't affirm someone's identity. That's not your job. And your job is not to deny their identity either. Your job is to help them explore their identity and hopefully to develop it.
You can be a gay person and live a very normal life. You can also be a gay person and be a degenerate. Deciding to get naked in front of children has nothing to do with your sexual orientation. That's just the fact that you're a degenerate person. It doesn't matter if you sleep with a man or a woman. The fact that you want to go and walk around naked in front of kids is degenerate behavior, regardless of sexual orientation. It has nothing to do with it. It's only accepted if you're homosexual. If you're a heterosexual, it's a crime. For some reason, if it's a homosexual, it's not a crime, but it's the same act, and it's degenerate. I have nothing against gay people. I don't care. Most people don't care, and I think that bothers them. I'm gay. Cool. I want to get married. I want to wave my dick in your kid's face. Whoa, 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 whoa. They tried to annoy us, and we're like, we don't give a shit. Do whatever you want. Be a person. We don't care. And now they're like, okay, well, we have to get to a limit where they have to react. We want attention now. Because there comes a point where you simply have to address it, and now you have to oppose it. This is why they're so careful and so clever with what they do. They package it all together. LGBTQ. I would argue that G and T are very different things. Beyond. A gay man and someone who's chopped the dick off are very different things. So they package it all together. So now the spectrum of your enemy is so large. You have people who are fully this way. You have people who we accept that are normal in society. We have no problem with gay people. And they put it all together. You're an enemy of all these people. And they complicate the argument and they mix it all together. And now you're a bigot. And really, you just want your kids to be left alone. Really, you just want to leave the children alone.
This is genderqueer, by the way. This is being shown to children. You think that graphic is appropriate for children? Do you?
That was Taylor from the Post Millennials footage of him going to a book banning protest in which he asked some very obvious LGBTQ plus activists if that excerpt that he had gotten from a book called Genderqueer, which is a very graphic gender ideology book, he asked if that excerpt was appropriate for children to be able to have access to in libraries, and these activists clearly could not answer his question. And the answer is obvious. No, children should not have access to this very graphic content. And there's a lot of us gays, lesbians, bisexuals that are speaking up against all this nonsense, and we're getting labeled as hateful or spreading hate, when that's not the case. We are just done with all the shenanigans that are going on. We don't hate the LGBTQ+, we just hate some of the things that they're doing, especially when it comes to children.
Don't start opening our mouths. They are coming for our children. They're already there. They're already coming for them in the cartoons. They're already coming for them in the miseducational, misdirectional system. They are coming for your children. Why? They can't have children. 2 dudes can't have a child. 2 women can't have a child. So they're coming for yours. They have to recruit yours. And in order to recruit yours, they have to silence your voice. They have to make your voice irrelevant to your own family members. And when they make all of your descendants homosexuals, they've cut off your family tree at the root. Well, because Satan is the ultimate anti-life.
This is why public acceptance of gay people is declining. Nobody in their right mind wants to be completely inundated with pride flags for the month of June.
You had a company called Lucifer Publishing to write out the philosophical underpinnings of the United Nations. She turned it into something called Lucis Trust, which still to this day exists at the United Nations as a meditation room with a big black cube in the middle and 1,000 points of light coming through the roof. And she wrote the 10 rules for the one world government, which still exists at the United Nations today. And they are, okay, take God and prayer out of education. Number 2, reduce parental authority over children. Number 3, destroy the traditional Christian family structure. Number 4, if sex is free, make abortion easy and legal. 5, make divorce easy and legal, free people of the concept of traditional marriage. 6, make homosexuality the alternative lifestyle. 7, debase art, make it run mad. 8, use media to promote and change mindset. 9, create an interfaith movement without God. And 10, get governments to make all these laws and get the churches to endorse them. Let's just say the one thing not welcome at the United Nations is God.
We are living in a peri-tyrannical situation where there's only 2 clicks left when you are required to have digital ID to move around and have a life, and when cashless central bank digital currencies are the only way you can buy and sell. At that point, you've lost your freedom. If you follow the breadcrumbs to 2030, anyone can look up the UN 2030 SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. By 2030, Britain specifically will have no commercial passenger aircraft leaving the country. You will not be able to leave. There will be no ships leaving the country. You will not own private transport. You will have a digital ID to do everything, and you will only have electronic money with which to transact. I would say at that point you are a slave, and because you can see them coming, you should say no. Say no right now. Stop. The things that are happening are really fantastic, but they go back decades. There's no question that there's been a very long run-up to the level of control that we are going to face if we allow cash to be winked out of existence.
Across the millennium years is crunch time in this whole agenda, crunch time for the human race. This is the time when this network of interbreeding bloodlines wants to bring in its global fascist structure of a world government to which nation states would be administrative units, of a world central bank and a world currency, a currency that wouldn't be cash, it would be merely electronic, for which there are fundamental implications for human freedom. And also the world army, which is designed to be NATO, expanding and expanding as it is now, of course, to become the fully fledged world army, world police force. And underpinning that little lot is designed to be a microchip population, in which we are microchipped with our financial details, our medical details, etc., etc. And that would allow not only electronic tagging, people knowing where we are all the time, it would allow the external manipulation through this electronic means of our mental and emotional processes. This will happen unless the human race wakes up and wakes up fast. And to do that, we need to understand what's really going on. And to let people know that, we've got to stop beating about the bush, stop pulling punches, stop pussyfooting around, keeping information from people, oh my goodness, how will they react, and just say, this is going on, take it or leave it, make of it what you will, but this is what's going on.
Unfortunately, I think this is just the beginning. So I've learned, when people tell you what they're going to do, don't ignore them. So when the UN and Bill Gates and Klaus Schwab tell you that they've got a UN 2030 plan with sustainable development goals, I think there are 17 or 21 of them, and every one of them says you won't be traveling, you won't have a private car, we won't be using international shipping to move goods around, there won't be any flights except military or perhaps very rich people, you won't own anything and you'll be happy, you probably won't live in your own house, you'll be using much less energy for everything, including heating, manufactured goods, and so on. When they tell you that, you should assume that they're serious about it. And so I think COVID has been part one of a multi-act play that's going to take 10 years that will destroy the liberal democracies completely. We've already, if you think living in a democracy, now ask yourself who you could vote for that would change this, because I don't think there's anyone you can vote for anywhere that is guaranteed things. So I don't have an answer, but I'm telling you, I think we're sliding down through the gates of hell. I'm speaking out. There's nothing in it for me. I've lost lots of money, all my friends. I'm away from my home and family. And I'm speaking out because, as I close, I am absolutely sure what I've told.
People in America, they think they are saving the world by buying electric cars. I have some bad news for you. No, you're not. So think about people with the mindset of electric cars, is that we are not using internal combustion engine cars. We're not using fuel. We're not using gas. We're not using diesel. We're not using petrol to drive our cars. Majority of the countries in the world still, they use fuel to burn it and then make electricity out of it. In which sense you're saving the world? When you're using the same or more amount of energy to create more energy to get your car powered up.
False. President Biden says he wants 50% of new cars to be electric by 2030.
True, but I guess now it's 60%.
True or false? A typical electric car requires 6 times the mineral inputs of a conventional car.
Yes.
If 50% of the cars were electric vehicles today, is there enough power on the electric grid to charge them all?
Absolutely not. No.
You said in your written statement, Mr. Bradbury, I'm going to quote you, if every country in the world achieved its stated EV targets by 2030, the total savings in carbon dioxide emissions would be expected to reduce global temperatures by only 0.0002 degrees Fahrenheit by the year 2100. Given this fact, is it unilaterally gutting the U.S. auto market, critical mineral supply chain, and the grid stability? Is that the solution for addressing the temperature goals?
Well, I don't think so.
There is no job worth $2 million a year. That's why they pay athletes these fantastic salaries. I was listening to the radio the other day. They just contracted to pay one player on one team $6 million a year. Can you believe this?
And why is that?
It's the Roman circus. What does the emperor do when the people become restive, and when the people are asking questions, and when the people don't like the policies of the emperor? He sends them to the circus. He creates a circus. He builds a giant coliseum. And he begins to throw the Christians to the lions. And he has great chariot races and football games and basketball games, all to keep the idiots preoccupied with things that don't mean anything in the scheme of the entire world, so that they don't have the time to learn what the truth is, so they don't ever get smart enough to learn how they're being manipulated. So they
doesn't matter, never has. Talent is too easy to find.
Yeah.
And I know that depresses a lot of you. And when people come to me, they always come to me like, yo, this dude is so talented. It just tells me you don't understand the music industry. It tells me you're green when you say that, because it's not about talent. It's never been about talent. Master P is not the most talented rapper in the world. Blueface is not the most talented rapper in the world. It's about success. It's a business. It's about the story. It's about the charisma. It's about who you are. It's about what people think of you.
Relatability.
Whether people like you.
Mm-hmm.
It's about relatability, connection, engagement. It's about so much more.
That's very
brave.
Yeah.
But they don't do the research on like, how did we end up this place? How did Africans end up all over the world when they were in one place? Where did these Caribbean people come from? How did they get here? You know, they don't do any research of like what religion they're born up in. Like, how did I end up in here? You know, was this just through my parents? What's the history behind that religion? What's the story behind everything? To try to draw a parallel, to try to figure out how the world works, you know, and that if they have like maybe Christians that are very believing in their religion, that they would have an alternative that doesn't really believe in that. It's two extremes, you know. But just in general, Gen Z lacks historical context, and also the fact that we're in the safest time in Western countries. And because we have so much safety, people feel like they can circumvent nature, that they can go around and go, okay, now I don't need men. I don't need women. I don't need any of you. I don't need it. I got an iPhone. I can do this all by myself. And it's like, well, you're not in a war scenario. You know,
that's why you don't need. You think you don't need anyone.
That's why, you
have no danger.
You have no real sense of danger. So now you feel like you're above everybody else. And Gen Z sort of been born into that. Oh, we're safe, but we still live in a nuclear age. If a nuclear bomb was to drop at any given point on some country because of some war that was going on, which is something right now that sounds really like far-fetched, but who knows?
Who knows? Like if
but
any,
who
yeah,
knows?
Who knows?
But
Yeah.
if it was one to happen and drop, kids of this generation will be dumbfounded that like, oh wow, that many people died. And it's like, yeah, like we still live and there's nukes everywhere. There's actually real danger, which is kind of like that film Oppenheimer, it's coming out in theaters. But there's real danger that's out there. And they were saying technically if you make over $34,000 a year, you are technically in the 1%. If you make over $34,000, yeah, you're part of the 1%. You might not be the 1% of billionaires, but you're in the 1% of Westerners that you guys have iPhones. the reason why people sit there and they will try to hack your email account, or they'll try to prank phone call you, or try to extort money out of you using AI, or whatever the case may be. The reason why people in like the Philippines or some country or an area that's impoverished will go to those extremes is because you have all of the product. You have all the product, and they have all the time. And because they have all the time, they have all the time to keep spamming you with emails, on auto send, until you click on an email and you get phished, and they can try to extort some money out of you. So you actually have so much advantages, but like you don't live in the reality that the rest of the world lives in.
I was about to say all the information in the world, but you still don't have all the information. It's the weirdest thing for an age,
that thinks
group.
They know everything.
They have the power to know everything.
Know everything on their phone. But they're watching TikTok videos.
But that's what I was about to say. But you'd rather put your minds in things that make no sense.
Yeah.
You don't want to know the geopolitical structure of different countries and what they're going through. So that's why in your head you're like, well, I guess everyone has an iPhone. Well, no, not everyone has a dope iPhone. Not everyone has the things you have.
You're going to festivals and you're keeping up with Lil Uzi Vert.
Yeah, like that's a privilege.
AKA Little Lucifer. Yeah, that's a privilege
and they all are privileged. Having the phone, having this, being able to just go, well, I just want to start a random SoundCloud career in my basement. That is a privilege.
Yeah.
The rest of the world don't live on that same.
Yeah. They don't live in that bubble.
Yeah.
You live in an echo chamber of privilege where you're criticizing the patriarchy, but you benefited off of the patriarchy. That's why people don't have much sympathy when they see these Karens that kind of come in and try to like join up on how oppressed they are as a woman. And people are like, wait, your generations ago, your husbands, your great grandfathers had wives. You try to blame all things on men, but there were women that were actively involved that fed these supposedly toxic men who went around and colonized. They have families that are there that benefit from it. And now there's still families in power that are financing all this division while you guys are fighting against each other. They're still retaining money, whether that's a banking family, Rothschilds, or, or that could be, the royal family. They're called royal family because they know true wealth is keeping your family together, because you get to live in a community, you support each other. They put all their money in a trust fund. That's the joke we use is trust fund guys. Ladies that
like
try to look for the trust fund guy to date who has a boat. He has all the time in the world. The trust fund guys in general, like, families have trust because that's how you sustain a family. If one person dies, they have life insurance that goes into the trust. So it's a never-ending flow of money, and the family never runs out of money. And this is how communities survived. And this is what it takes to survive. But right now, they're telling you you don't need anybody.
You don't need anyone.
They want to keep everybody divided. So please understand how we're all being played. And so, that's how we feel. And the older generation shouts to you guys for having the courage to say things that are on your mind. I'm an old soul, so I've always been like really propelled to just try to find ways to just get out messages regardless of how people feel, and not to hurt feelings, but to just say that no one is above critique. We all poop, sneeze, cough, do all these things. So we're human at the end of the day, and we can always improve. And how society only improves if we're able to have the conversation and dialogue about it. So
100%.
I want to apologize once again, like we did at the beginning of the episode, to the LGBTQ community in general, because they've always existed, throughout society, history. They've always had different people that lived these lifestyles, and it's actually a very small community. Today it's being polarized to be huge, and it's trying to make children want to convert, or teenagers want to convert into that lifestyle. Now that we've seen Target come out with like bathing suits where kids get to tuck their penises into the bathing suit, boys, to try to look like a girl, and they're doing this targeting children. Now we understand like that it's a slippery slope. And I've always said this. I've always been happy for LGBTQ community, but there's some people in that community, and also there's financial interest philanthropists that can exploit that community because they have their own deviancies. They have their own things they do in private. Some of these people, like I said, are in groups that do stuff in private that you probably wouldn't want to hear about because they're rich. They got too much time on their hands and they get into weird crap because they've got too much time on their hands. So in general, I want to apologize to the LGBTQ community because I feel like you guys were co-opted into a lot of outrage that you might not have asked for. That you didn't have anything to do with wanting to finance or purport. And same with the trans movement or same with trans people. Some of these things you can't even really call movement or community. These are people that exist in our society. We don't call it the Black movement. It's just, I don't even know. See, that's language abuse again, the word movement. It's trying to make everything bigger than what it is. But these are people that are part of society. Yeah. And so also with the trans community, apologies to you guys, because you guys might be receiving a lot of angst that might be targeted at you, but you didn't necessarily have anything to do with the financing that these corporations, whether it's a film studio, whether it's Nickelodeon, or it's Coca-Cola, or it's, Activision, a video game company, or it's these philanthropists have done and what they're trying to do it for. So it's disingenuous, false activism that they're doing, so please be aware of that. And we love you guys. Everybody has their differences. There's some things that I really, like I said, that are important to me. And I just want to make humanity better as a whole, So some things, I'm learning about myself. We're all learning during this process of trying to find better ways to articulate our message and make things better for our planet as a whole. But we have to protect kids. And as a father as well, too, that's sort of like my red line as well. So much love to you guys. How do you feel, Bender?
No, I'm the same. No, everything you said was 100%. It just sucks that you're all getting meshed into one. And I just hope that
because they pushed us in it. As our struggle as Africans, everybody's all pushed into one thing. African trans paraplegic. We're all like, bam, and we're just like, who did this and why are they doing it? And it's to create our own pressure Olympics. Yeah. The more they keep society divided, the easier it is for society to just police each other. Same as COVID. We're watching who has a mask, who doesn't have a mask, or who's vaccinated, who's not vaccinated. And all that does is buys time for people in power to keep going, oh, look at you people. You're so out of control. Let us come up with a solution for you. It's the same thing you were talking about with the African Americans being treated like in film. We need a handout. We need a handout. And there's people actively wanting us to stay in a state of oppression. It's the same with the continent of Africa. There's a reason why they have an issue with China being in Africa at the moment and helping develop Africa, because there's certain vested interests that want to keep Africa in a state of being oppressed so they can get free cobalt, they can get all these free minerals and resources, and to exploit these countries.
That they bring about bills relating to LGBTQ, they'll never say them to the Arabs. They'll never go to Kuwait. They'll never go to Bahrain. They'll never go to Brunei. They'll never go to Saudi Arabia. They'll never go to Indonesia to tell them. It is Africans who they think are tails to be wagged. So on this issue, the government of the Uganda and the people of Uganda, I am with them 100%. There is no freedom outside of the law.
How do you balance the decision or the right to choose?
Choose what? The choice must be limited according to the mores of a different community. And in any event, should we be talking about LGBTQ when we have no food on the table? And the danger, including with you journalists, is that now when you interview people, you have your own position that you want to impose on us. We refuse.
And concerning the World Cup, you said you're looking forward to the German guests. Are you also looking forward to homosexual German guests, or do they have to stay home?
Listen, everybody's welcome in Doha. We do not stop anybody from coming to Doha with any different backgrounds, any different belief. Qatar is a very welcoming country, and the World Cup is a great opportunity for people from different parts of the world to come and experience our culture. We will not stop anybody from coming, visiting, and enjoying the football. We all live in one planet, but each of us have different cultures. We welcome everybody, but also we expect and we want people to respect our culture.
I have a question regarding, we talked about tolerance and acceptance. And the other end of that is extremism. So I'm a Jew, Christian, newfound Muslim, respect, look at us all hanging out here.
Yeah, that's the beginning of a joke somewhere.
You know, so we're talking about accepting I have gay friends, I have lesbian friends, I have bisexual.
Yep.
The T stuff is what, it's kind of like, all right, what's actually even happening here? You know, I'm not this is not my wheelhouse nor any of our wheelhouses, but one could argue that, you know, on the opposite end of the acceptance and the tolerance is absolute extremism. And I'm sure the allies of the LGBT will point to Islam and point to the Middle Eastern countries and point to the North African countries that have Islam as their religion and say they are the most extreme when it comes to LGBT. They say that it should be illegal to be gay. And in some countries you should be killed if you are gay. This is just, I'm just pointing out stats.
You're right, and it's a super interesting argument because I will sit here and say that I guarantee in most Islamic countries there are gay people, and I guarantee that they have gay relationships and nobody cares as long as they're not trying to inflict on the children. It's illegal to walk down the street and do indecent things in front of children. But I guarantee if you were gay in a lot of these countries, privately, nobody would care because they're trying to preserve the family unit. And to a degree, you have to always protect innocence. When you talked about extremism, I would be friends with a gay person. Yes, I'm a Muslim, but I would be friends with a gay person because if a full-grown man decides to make a decision, it's his decision to make. But I must protect innocence as a man, so I must protect children. If two full-grown men decide to have a fight, let them fight. If a full-grown man decides to pick on a kid, that's unacceptable. So I must protect innocence. So I agree with the extremism point, but I have no problem with full-grown men doing what they want to do. Maybe some Islamic scholars are going to watch this and get mad at me. I don't have a problem with gay people and being friends with a gay person. I don't care. My problem is when you take a person who is unarmed, who is innocent, who is programmable like a child, and start inflicting your worldview on them. That is disgusting and it's immoral. That is unfair and it can't be accepted on any level. And that's the reason homosexuality is genuinely outlawed in these countries. Not because they fear what two full-grown men are going to do. They fear what's happened in the West. So two full-grown men are going to purport on the minds of children which aren't theirs. That's what they're afraid of.
So guys, understand how the world works. Do your own research. You know, you don't have to listen to us in full. You know, let us plant a seed and then you do the own research so you can own the information and then it becomes a part of you. Not because we said it or we might become your favorite YouTubers when, you know, we get a bazillion followers. But we're not in it for that. We have delayed gratification. We're here because we care about our planet and these topics and stuff. So,
100%. Much love, guys.
Yes.
Any questions or anything or any statements or anything, you know, just throw them down in the comments because we're happy. We're happy with that.
Put
you know,
it
we
in
don't mind.
comments.
I won't get triggered.
Exactly. We won't get triggered. Exactly. And don't let psychologists use that to their advantage or whatever. They get excited when somebody with colored hair comes in their office because they're like, oh, money. It's like, okay, look out for triggers. And like, what is that? You're anticipating constantly to be on a state that puts you in a state of neurosis where you're on edge all the time because you're worried about someone talking. Throw that word trigger in the trash. Be open to conversations because that's the only way we're going to be able to help each other is being able to talk before they try to censor the internet or AI tries to do it. So anyhow, love you guys.
Have a lovely night.
Terminator, Dudes Brewing.
Bye.
Out, guys. Peace. Oh, blood. Yeah, dude.
I see two.
Oh,
both mine.
To be honest. Oh gosh.
Both mine.
Bro, what's up? Dude, let's get out of here.
What?
Pretty gnarly, man. 304.
Jump.
Yeah, let's do it. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
The man them too inconsiderate, 5-star hotel smoking cigarette, mixing codeine up with a Finnegan. She got fit but she wanna get back in. Drinking apple cider vinegar, wearing skin cause she wanna be criminal. Alright, I know they are bad, stop acting innocent. We ain't got generational wealth, it's only
getting away from the 304. On the way.